for Microsoft software in terms of the operating system, it's actually kind of exorbitantly expensive. Probably because you're not going to be buying Microsoft products once you buy the actual operating system. I mean, think about it. I'm not going to buy MS Office because I have LibreOffice. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that, wake up, sheeple. They're waking up that they don't actually need MS Office to do half the stuff that they want to do. I mean, your history professor is not going to be able to tell if you export your Word document as an Excel file through LibreOffice, or as a Word document from LibreOffice. He's not going to care. He's going to say, "Oh, you didn't use actual MS Word or Office 365? I can't believe it." He's not going to care, most likely anyway. He might, but he probably won't. So there's no reason to be using MS Office unless you've already got it for free, in which case, hey. But still, you haven't paid Microsoft for it. And it's not like Microsoft is bleeding money. Microsoft is very smart. The people who run Microsoft are very smart people. I believe Satya Nadella is a very smart guy, very hip too. Have you seen the guy? He's the hippest CEO I've seen in a long time. Even hipper than our good buddy Steve Jobs, who wore the same outfit for 20-something years, and probably never changed it either, knowing what we know about Steve Jobs. But yeah, Microsoft seems to be a very hip company. Google is the hippest of hip companies. It basically sets all the trends that we do today. I mean, for heaven's sake, Google bought YouTube. I mean, what more do you want in terms of trend setting? Google saw the trend that is exploding out of YouTube and snapped it up. YouTube is now the platform for video sharing. But no, the point is, Chrome OS and Android merging would not be the end of the world. It could mean potentially Android app compatible laptops, which would be really cool, I have to say. I would totally get that, actually. Honestly, I hate to say it because I would be part of the botnet, but I got to say, if you could come out with a Chrome running laptop that also ran all my Android apps and synced up to my Google Play account, I would totally get that. And maybe that's what Google's going for there, because I actually seriously I would buy the crap out of that. That would be an awesome machine. So I hope that that's what Google's going for. And again, I wouldn't abandon my free as in freedom software ethic either. I'd still be using Linux I'd still be using Ubuntu on my work machine. But I would partake in the sacrament of Google. I have to say, if I got a Chromebook, it would be for that reason, because it would run my Android apps and it would sync up with my Google Play account. That'd just be really neat. I don't know. I just get a kind of a cool vibe about that. There's actually rumors, by the way, that Nintendo's next console may run Android apps, or at least be compatible with Android apps. The new idea for Nintendo's new console, I think it's called the NX. I can never keep track. I hope they keep that name and don't change it to something dumb like the US. The Nintendo US. You had the Wii, now we got the US. Here's the Nintendo US coming out. I'd still buy it, but I'd be annoyed. No, the Nintendo system that's just now coming out is supposedly going to have a handheld that goes with it, much like the Wii U does, but it'll possibly run Android, which would be kind of cool. It'd be really funny, though, if Nintendo and Apple teamed up and it ran iOS. That's totally unrealistic, but it would be really funny anyway. So who knows? Android and Chrome merging? I don't know, man. So saying Google is committed to Chrome OS is a far walk from saying that the Wall Street Journal is wrong in its speculation that Chrome and Android will be merging, with the journal reporting that the project won't be finished until 2017, because this would be a huge undertaking. Google can't have the public think that Chrome OS will be spending the next 2 years on death row. It has Chromebooks to sell, and customers won't invest in Chrome OS hardware if they think that it's a dying platform. So even if Chrome OS were on the way out, good business sense says that Google would have to be committed, in quotes, to the platform until it has something new to take its place, which it presently, as far as we know, does not. That's the thing about dying software or dying platforms, is companies will almost never say it's phasing out this or that. Think about when the HD DVDs came out, and boy, did the companies push that, and to the dying breath of HD DVDs, they were still committed to HD DVD. I mean, think about it this way. Laserdisc was a great platform when it came out. I'm not being ironic about that at all. I'm not being facetious. Laserdisc actually really was a great platform when it came out. It was hugely expensive, but on the technical side, it was a great platform. I own quite a few Laserdiscs, and I have to say, they don't hold up to today's standards, but they do look great considering when they came out. That's kind of the weird thing is you have a lot of these laser discs that came out in the late 80s and they look really good. They look better than VHS. And you're just sitting there going, man, this is almost DVD quality from the late 80s. And it's really kind of cool. But the last Laserdisc, the last real major, everyone knows about it, motion picture to be released on Laserdisc was The Matrix from 1999. And they held on to that platform, man. I mean, Laserdisc was like, to the dying breath, they were still pushing out Laserdisc players. They had DVD combo Laserdisc players that play DVDs and Laserdiscs till the dying day of Laserdisc in the late 80s. Like 98, they were still putting out brand new Laserdisc players way after everyone had already bought them. So it's just, that's how companies operate. They'll push a software and they've invested so much into it. They just keep pushing. And so Google pushing Chrome OS, I don't think that it's premature that Google would be perhaps looking at phasing it out, but it might be a little bit short-sighted to get rid of Chrome OS. A merger, though, would be a positive option. If everyone can just upgrade their Chromebooks to this new merged version of Android and Chrome, I can see that happening, and I can see that being a good move. The thing is, Google will have to make sure it's light. It needs to not be some heavy, fat program that's going to be 500 something megs to download on your phone, and you don't have that much space. You have to delete all your apps, and then, you don't want that to happen. So probably it won't, because I cannot imagine Google being that stupid. But the potentiality is certainly there for Google to actually be that stupid. But that's the downside, because after all, Google did come out with that awful new logo, which actually is the worst corporate logo I've ever seen. It actually seriously is bad. The Google logo that we have now, that like weird cartoon, awful, my 5-year-old nephew drew it logo, so bad. I don't know who came up with that. They should be fired, but it's just bad. Seriously, I was offended when I saw the new Google logo. I got way more steamed about it than I really should have, because you have to understand my age. I was born in 1995. I grew up with Google. Google came around in 98. I don't remember the year 1998. Barely I do. And so I grew up with Google looking the way Google did until this year. And then they go, we're going to change it around. It's going to be flat, and it's going to be simplified, and it's going to have a G that's crooked, and it's going to look great. We're going to get rid of the whole look of Google. I don't need that look of Google. I was so mad about that. And maybe I shouldn't have been, honestly, but I still was very mad about that. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Hey, check us out on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can find us there. I can't think of words today. I've had about 4 cups of coffee already, and it's sort of kicking in. Like, I can speak quickly, but I can't think of words. And that's a bit of a problem. Hey, remember the story that I broke? Well, I didn't break it, but remember that story I reported on the 5 o'clock news a few days ago about that blimp that ran off, and it dragged this tether line that made a lot of people in Pennsylvania lose power? Well, funny story, the Pennsylvania police had to shoot at it a few times to get it to come down. The wayward JLENS aerostat, which left a trail of power outages caused by the 6,000 feet of cable it was dragged for over 160 miles on Wednesday, was hit by a barrage of shotgun fire to remove its remaining helium. Approximately 100 shotgun blasts were fired at the balloon by the Pennsylvania State Police, according to the U.S. Army Captain Matthew Villa, a Army spokesperson. Or maybe it's Villa, like the guy who was on PBS who would fix houses. Yeah, Bob Villa. That guy was cool. Army spokesperson who said that firing on the balloon was the easiest way to remove the remaining helium gas in the grounded radar aerostat. Now, I must say that I am a very vocal critic of police culture, right? I'm a very vocal critic of the cops. But in this particular instance, I actually totally understand why they did what they did, because who doesn't want to shoot at a giant helium-filled balloon 100 times with shotguns? You get free reign to fire at this huge thing with shotguns. Of course you're going to do it. But yeah, no, this balloon was as big as a few football fields, which, because I'm not a sports person, I have no idea how long a football field is. I don't know how long a football field is, actually. I think it's like Gosh, how long is I think it's like 100 yards or something. No, it couldn't be. Oh man, I don't know. I don't really care either, but football fields are quite large things. I've been to one, I think, and two of them put together means a very large object. And so a large object as big as two football fields, I assume about 200 yards, I don't know, flying down the air or flying across the air and dragging a 6,000 feet long cable, which drags across power lines, which causes power outages for about 80,000 people. That's a problem. So to let out your aggression on this particular awful thing by firing at it with bunches of shotguns, I totally understand, and I have to say I applaud, to be quite honest with you. The incident throws yet another shadow on the JLENS program, which thus far has cost about $2 billion. Yeah, Raytheon, actually, has been marketing the aerostats to the government for use in border monitoring and for the cruise missile detection mission it was being evaluated for by the North American Air Defense Command, or NORAD. Yes, that same Raytheon, which put out classic radio tubes and TVs and all sorts of cool home electronics back in the day, that very same Raytheon is apparently responsible for building this giant blimp and potentially for designing the JLENS program, which is a very long acronym, which I can never remember what it stands for. It's something about missile defense. Basically, these big blimps detect incoming cruise missiles from the Ruskies or whoever, and then it just basically, at that point, it just determines if there's a cruise missile incoming, which I guess I can understand, but seems like a bit overkill. I don't know. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. And of course, we're always here at hotnewstalkradio.com as well. So be sure to check us out there and on Twitter as well. Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Saudi Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. This week, we take a step back from politics, business, and global events to speak with well-being expert Deepak Chopra. We've all had the experience of feeling invisible at a party, at work, or at home. Join us as we discover what to do when we feel invisible this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Lillian Wu. We're getting word that the commander-in-chief has authorized U.S. service members to head to Syria and Iraq.
We do now have from a senior administration official that could be up to 50 special operations forces, and not just on the ground in Syria battling ISIS, but also on the ground in Iraq.
Fox's Kevin Corp.
Special operations forces can draw from the wide swath of available military personnel. We also have learned from the administration that A-10 Warthog aircraft will be headed to Turkey in the battle against ISIS, as well as F-15 Strike Eagles as well.
5 high school students have been hurt, 2 very seriously, in a fire in a chemistry class in Northern Virginia. And the remaining section of an Army blimp that broke loose in Maryland and came to rest in the Pennsylvania countryside will be removed over the weekend. An Army spokesman says the sensitive radar in the blimp's hull will be removed today. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw me sprinting across the office because I forgot my phone, which I need to do my show. My phone has all my notes on it, and I am so dependent on technology that I have to have my phone to do a radio show, which is an interesting blend of tech, actually, when you think about it. But oh well. Hey, by the way, this show is brought to you by Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, so be sure to head down there if you've got some gold that you want to give away for cash. You get top dollar for your gold and silver from Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. It's at 5301 Brainerd Road, and make sure you get some cash from Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. We actually got a caller on the air. Hey, caller, what's up?
Hey, Mr. High Tech Guru.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm going to try to prove my theory that people don't change only technology.
Okay.
It's amazing how we keep going to high tech, like the F-22 fighter, which is the most sophisticated bomber in the world, and our sophisticated F-16s and so on and so forth. And here we're calling in muscle with old technology, with an old airplane, the Warthog, the A-10, which is a monster machine. So the Obama administration is bringing the A-10 Warthog, old technology, out of mothballs, because it was mothballed, to bring it back to, once again, a conflict whereby troops are actually on the ground to the extent where cruise missiles won't work.
Well,
the A-10 will devastate everything in its path on the ground.
Well, caller, I can give you an explanation, actually. A, the F-35 is a terrible plane. B, the A-10 is an awesome plane. That is, I mean, seriously, I love the A-10. I'm not even a big military guy. I love the A-10 so much. It's the plane that's built around a gun, and you can't get much cooler than that. And the F-35 is just bloated nonsense. I can't stand that plane. But yeah,
well, even the F-16. I mean, but when people talk about, oh, we no longer need an Air Force and everything could be done with drones, so on and so forth, go back to, once again, and Vietnam, they thought this. They thought, well, we don't need to arm our fighter planes with guns. So we're not going to have dogfights at 1.5 times the speed of sound. Well, guess what? Everything's relative. They rearmed the sophisticated fighter planes with guns.
Yeah, and that's part of why oddly enough, the Soviets had sort of a leg up in that conflict, because they actually put guns on the planes, and it kind of worked. We were not doing too well in the air in the early days of the Vietnam War. We corrected that and started whooping, but in the early days...
Yeah, so I think where technology can come in is information.
Yeah.
Giving the proper information so you're not killing your own people. There's no friendly fire. For spotting the enemy at night with accurate night vision, so on and so forth. But the actual machinery, if you look at it, really hasn't changed since the Wright brothers. Isn't that interesting?
It's doing the exact same function, just in a much faster way, basically. It's the exact same function, like guns. Guns today have been exactly the same in practice since like the mid 1900s. It's just that they do things a little bit faster now.
I can tell you this, Russell. This reminds me of Vietnam. We only send in advisors.
Right.
How long are we going to keep sending troops in?
That's what I thought.
They can't fight for themselves and buy our equipment, or we lend them the equipment. We need to talk about declarations of war where a president thinks he gets authority to send any American troop anywhere in the world without a declaration of war in violation of the Constitution. That's not liberal, conservative, Republican, or Democrat. That's the law, and he's violating the law right now.
Yeah, the problem the problem with that is, and I agree with you, but the problem that they would propose is that, well, we passed this bill that authorizes the president to send troops. Now, I know that's unconstitutional, but that would be the rebuttal you would get. And
it's not a rebuttal because the Congress is not authorized to do that. The Constitution sets strict, specific limits.
No, I understand that completely. I'm just saying that
Article 1, Section 8 primarily.
No, I agree.
Any legislation that's repugnant to the Constitution is unconstitutional. They can't grant their authority to another agency or give it up, or by attrition, or by being complicit, saying, well, you know what, if you do it, we're gonna have hands off. The president, people have to understand this, does not have the constitutional authority to kill Americans anywhere in the world without giving that person due process, and does not have any authority to send any troops anywhere in the world outside of our borders without a declaration of war, except where there is an individual that, let's say, they're granting a letter of marque against an individual who has, let's say, blown something up or attacked America. But that's one individual.
Right, and that's unlikely to happen nowadays, too.
Right. So one can argue, yeah, there can be legislation allowing this, but in reality, it violates the Constitution. But then who's there to stop them? Who's there to actually stop them?
I'm really...
he's the commander-in-chief. If the general said, we're not going to do this, would they be tried with sedition, treason?
Yeah, the president has the Joint Chiefs in his pocket anyway, so any sort of revolt was a little bit unlikely.
Now, this is where the Congress needs to impeach. Congress should have impeached Bush. They should have impeached Clinton. Actually, both Bushes should have been impeached.
Yeah.
And this president should have been impeached, and probably charged with high crimes and misdemeanors against the people of our constitutional republic.
Well, you go all the way back. I mean,
with guts to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. No, you can go all the way back to, LBJ and Eisenhower and JFK even, as much as I don't not like JFK, pretty much, Nixon, of course, all these different presidents sent troops overseas. Vietnam was an undeclared war. It was illegal. It was not a legal conflict. Korea is the same way, technically. And pretty much every war, actually, seriously, every war since World War II has been constitutionally illegal. And that's just a simple hard fact. It's just the way it is. Now, Congress can make little acts that say, well, this is the Counterterrorism Protection Act that's going to make it so that the president can send troops here, there, and yon, but that does not make it legal. I can say that on my property, I can kill people because I am the executive of my property, and that doesn't really make it true because there is a higher power than me, or there's a higher power than the president. Executive only goes so far, and the president is now sending people. Of course, he's been advised to do this, I'm sure, sending people overseas into Syria as advisors. And my really big concern is that this will be my generation's Vietnam. Honestly, my generation's Vietnam has already been here. It's the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and the conflicts in Pakistan and wherever else we've been that we don't even know about. But I'm really worried Syria could explode into another proxy war with the Russians, and that's just... It's not something we need. War is terrible. Wars should not happen. I understand wars do happen, and I know that we can't avoid them entirely all the time. But wars should be avoided as much as possible. It's just the right thing to do. is to avoid war as much as is possible. And it does not seem that people in Congress or any form of leadership in this country are very interested in doing the right thing, which is avoiding war at all costs. And it seems that war is now being pushed harder than ever, especially in Syria, which makes not a whole lot of sense practically. There's quite a bit of money to be made from war. I understand that, but it's just it's a nasty situation. It's an immoral situation, which we've gotten ourselves into. And of course, there is a problem now, too, where U.S. Troop participation is at an all-time low since 1945, where not a whole lot of people have signed up for the military, myself included. I considered the Coast Guard, and that was as far as I wanted to go. I can understand Coast Guard, honestly. I do understand that. And I do understand Navy. Navy's constitutional. Coast Guard, sort of. I can see Coast Guard. But beyond that, no, it's not legal. It's not constitutional. And the problem is so many people are, well, it's not a problem, but a problem that to the government that's rising is that people are not wanting to go to war. We're kind of sick of it. And we're seeing a second resurgence, I guess, of sort of a pacifist movement where people are just like, I don't want to go to war. I'm not going to go to war. I won't join the military. Not going to happen. And I say that's a fortunate thing, but people who want war are very upset about that, to the point where I've seen arguments for a second draft, which we all know is a bad thing, but we are not in Congress, are we? That's the thing. Even Charlie Rangel, who's a very noted liberal, is in favor of a second draft, or at least has raised arguments in favor of a second draft. I don't know if he personally is in favor of a second draft, or in favor of a new draft being imposed, but he's at least said that it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. Several different people have raised this argument, especially I've actually seen in even local newspaper opinion pieces about how a new draft might not be the worst thing, which of course totally throws out all ideas of personal liberties, because now you're coercing people to do something which they do not want to do. And if they refuse, you're throwing them in jail. And that is immediately immoral at that point. There is nothing even remotely moral about this idea. And yet it's still being pushed quite hard. And it's a frightening time that we live in terms of warfare. It's a very frightening time. War is so sophisticated now. Killing people is an easy matter. And yeah, the idea remains the same. Guns still shoot in basically the same way which they have since the mid-1900s. Gun design really hasn't changed that much since the 1950s or 60s, honestly. It's just revisions on ideas from those eras. We're not seeing huge innovations in small arms development like we did in the earlier days. It's just not happening. The CZ-75 is still a wonderful handgun, and it was designed in, you guessed it, 1975. The AR-15, which we're constantly using all the time, very popular gun. It's a very good gun too, but it was designed in the late 1950s. The AR-10 is the original, is the progenitor of the AR-15, and it was designed in the late 50s. Eugene Stoner. And so our guns have not changed a whole lot. The AR-15 is not high tech. The M16 is not high tech. It's actually very low tech by today's standards, and yet guns have not changed at all, really. And people say, oh, they got bullpup designs, though. Yeah, but the problem is it's just a trigger remounting. It's just moving the trigger location on an AR-18. That's all the FS-2000 is. It's just moving the trigger group on an AR-18. But I digress. I could talk about that for ages and ages and ages, so we'll move on to what I was wanting to get into. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio, and I'm not worried about it. I do thank the caller for calling. Number to call in, by the way, is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. I forgot how numbers work. 423-800-8949 if you want to call in. 8949, I guess. FBI planes have gathered days of video and electronic surveillance over Baltimore. Now, you can understand why. I understand why, but I do not approve. The ACLU has obtained documents from the FBI that details the investigative, or the surveillance flights made by FBI-operated aircraft over Baltimore last May. The flights included both high-res optical and infrared surveillance and at least 2 electronic surveillance flights, though the exact nature of the sensors used on the electronic surveillance flights was redacted from the documents. Not surprising. Collection of records, which includes flight logs, evidence logs, and an FBI memorandum justifying the flights, was obtained by the ACLU through a Freedom of Information Act filed on May the 6th. The aircraft, which is registered to FBI front companies, which are used to conceal the identity of the aircraft flown by the FBI Special Flight Operations Branch, flew day and night missions over the areas where protests were taking place in Baltimore, areas where riots broke out the previous week after the death of Freddie Gray in police custody. So, of course, we understand why this was done. It's supposedly, anyway, to quell protests, to ensure that officers remain safe and all these sorts of things. We understand why it was done, but is it moral? Is it the right thing to do? Because we're talking about capturing digital information without warrant. That's not legal. I don't care what your purpose is. You can go about this a legal way, and that was not done. Thus, it is illegal. I don't care about your motive. You break the law. You break the law, which is not legal, obviously, because you've broken the law. So it leads to a difficult situation for the FBI, but not too difficult, because it's not like anyone's going to sue the FBI, or even if it does get sued, it's not like any charges are going to be pressed. It's a simple matter for the FBI to procure a few $1 million in damages. The government doesn't care about money. I mean, it does, but it cares about collection of money, but spending it, you have an infinite supply of money. Of course you can spend money. You have infinite supplies of it. Print more if you want to. Just get more. It exists out of nothing anyway. Create more numbers in a database. That's the thing. Creation of money is as easy as adding a zero to someone's bank account. Now this money exists. It's not like there's any sort of checks and balances for how much money exists in the world. It's not like there's a blockchain like there is with Bitcoin, where we can keep track of exactly how many Bitcoins there are in existence. There's a lot of counterfeit money, and it's really hard to keep track of all that stuff, actually. It's extremely hard to keep track of all that. That's actually why the Secret Service was created in the first place, way back in the day, was actually to quell counterfeiting that was being perpetrated by the mob, the mafia. And the Secret Service somehow turned into an executive protection program. But the Secret Service actually really does still do anti-counterfeiting measures, which is kind of interesting. I don't know how we got there from electronic surveillance being flown by FBI, but whatever. The records show that the FBI not only provided live video intelligence to the Baltimore police, but also collected and saved high-res video footage of hundreds of people participating in protests on the streets of Baltimore. Footage which may be used in the future to offer a look inside the FBI's secret surveillance operations, which span the country, carrying not just cameras, but electronic sensors such as what we call dirt boxes, which can track cell phones on the ground and even potentially intercept calls. In the electronic memorandum, which was filed by the FBI, accompanying evidence records from the surveillance FBI officials describe their reasoning from the aerial surveillance. And I know this is sounding like a jumbled up bunch of words. That's because we're talking about federal official documents. And whenever you talk about federal official documents, you have to get into the realm of really jumbled up, messed up acronyms, because the feds love jumbled up, messed up acronyms. Remember that story we were just talking about? And if you don't, that's okay. But there's a story about a blimp which lost control. It broke free of its tether over Pennsylvania, and it took out a lot of power for about 80,000 people who were without power in Pennsylvania because its tether broke the lines. Problem is, the name of this particular blimp is this acronym that's really hard to say, and what the acronym means is even harder to say. But I do have to say, at least we are not like the Chinese, who name everything type and then a number. I'm not even kidding. And again, to get back to guns, Chinese guns are all named like type 86, type 54, which is a good carbine, type all this. I hate that so much. There's no personality in the naming to these guns. It's just bad. But it's not like the Americans are any better, because we have the M1. Ooh, exciting. The M1. Then you got the M4, the M16. So I guess we're just as bad, but at least these guns have a fun colloquial name. Like we can call them the M16. I don't know. Actually, there is no fun name for it. But the M1 Garand, that's fun. Or Garand. There's the grease gun, the M2 submachine gun grease gun. Now, that's a fun gun, and it's really cool. Nice, slow rate of fire, actually. I really like that one. But I digress. The FBI has a statement which says this: social media streaming and intelligence has indicated that large-scale demonstrations and protests are being scheduled for Baltimore and the surrounding areas. The potential for large-scale violence and riots throughout the week presents a significant challenge for the Baltimore Police Department for airborne surveillance and observation. Baltimore will request the assistance of the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group and the Washington Field Office in the matter of airborne surveillance to assist the Baltimore Police Department. Baltimore has continued to evaluate threat streams, intelligence, canvas sources, and follow all actionable leads. Now, I cannot fault the FBI or the Baltimore Police Department for tracking Twitter. Obviously, Twitter is publicly available information. I can go on Twitter and read stuff. So that is not equivalent to reading people's private communications without warrant, of course. Checking on Twitter is, even without warrant, I don't really have a problem with. Honestly, I can see that it's a little bit dubious, but I don't have a problem with it because anyone can go on Twitter. So reading someone's Twitter account is openly available. It's the same as looking at the outside of someone's house. It's readily available. It's right there. You can see it from the outside without having to get a warrant. I understand that. So I understand that the Baltimore Police Department understands there's going to be riots downtown. This makes sense. Okay, Baltimore Police actually sort of does have a responsibility to protect homeowners, property owners, whatever, in this area. So that bit I understand. And I'm not pro rioters, and I'm not really pro police either. As a reporter, I have to take an objective stance, and I have to say I do understand why the Baltimore Police did what they did. That makes sense. The problem comes in, though, when the FBI comes in with dirt boxes, presumably without warrant. We've seen no evidence of warrants, gathering people's cell phone information. But again, this is without warrant, making it illegal. I don't care what the reason is. It's illegal. Now, the purpose of a dirt box, I should explain, is it's a cell site simulator. What happens is your phone connects to this dirt box, which is on a plane, which ensures maximum coverage. The dirt box puts out a signal that's stronger than an average cell tower. Your phone automatically connects to it. So any information which your cell phone sends goes through this dirt box. So if you were watching, say, a live stream from Baltimore, which I was during the protests, not that that makes me special, I just mentioning that. I was watching a live stream of these protests. Chances are, because he was streaming over 4G, that stream was actually going through one of these dirt box planes flying overhead. And that's kind of a weird thought. And again, this information is obtained without warrant. It pretends to be a cell tower. People connect to it, and information goes through it without warrant. This is illegal. You need a search warrant to get people's private communications. Fourth Amendment states that very plainly. So this is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, plain and simple, by the FBI. I don't care about motive. I don't care about, well, there were protesters or rioters. I don't care about, well, there might have been imminent danger. I don't care about any of that because it makes it illegal if it's a violation of the Constitution. If you ignore the Constitution, you may as well not have laws. And that actually is the situation where we are in presently. People ignore the Constitution, we may as well not have one. And that just is the case. There's no ignoring that at this point. This has been the case for a very long time. This is not new phenomenon at all. There's no skewing it to make it look like this is a modern new thing. People are going to violate the Constitution. That's just how it is. And unfortunately, the courts love to play along with that, which is why I was saying earlier that I really don't like the courts. The American court system is designed very well. On its face, looking from above, it looks really great. The American court system is, I wouldn't say flawless, but it's supposed to work quite well. Problem is, personal bias can come in, and always does, and ruin everything. And that is what happened in this particular case. The court says that it is legal for the NSA to spy on you because Congress says so, basically. In May, a federal appeals court declared the National Security Agency's bulk telephone metadata collection program is illegal because it wasn't authorized under the Patriot Act, as the Obama administration and its predecessor administration, the Bush administration, had maintained. So the Bush administration really is technically to blame for the Patriot Act, but Republicans wrote it long before then. So, I mean, yeah, the Bush administration was there, but Congress is more to blame than anyone. Everyone likes to point the finger at the president. I don't like Bush. I don't like Obama. I don't like any president, really. I like Jefferson. He's kind of cool. And I like Washington. He was pretty neat, too. And I have to say, I don't mind JFK. But he wasn't really president long enough for me to dislike him. So there is that. But LBJ's awful. I don't really like any president. Even Reagan, I'm a little bit on the fence about Reagan because I don't mind him as a person, but I don't want to get into that right now. I mean, I think he's a good guy, but whatever. No, the problem that we have now is that people always want to blame the president instead of the people who are actually making these decisions, which is Congress. Nobody wants to blame Congress, even though Congress has a low approval rating, like super low. People never want to blame Congress for whatever reason for a lot of these different things. They say, well, Obama's trying to do this. Congress authorized it. Congress wrote the bill. Obama just signed it. He did what he's supposed to do, right? I mean, yeah, he could veto it and say this is unconstitutional, but that's unrealistic to expect of him, honestly. And Bush did the same thing. Bush Sr. did the same thing. Clinton did the same thing. Whoever the next president is going to do the same thing. Clinton or Trump or Carson or whoever, Cruz maybe. They're all going to do the same thing. It's the same trend. It's always going to be the same until the end of the American system. And that just is how it is. We are blaming the wrong person. We love to point fingers at one individual, in this case, the president. Really, there are two groups we have to blame for how America is today: Congress and ourselves. Really, that's it. Congress and ourselves. These are the two groups we really should be blaming. The president is just a side effect. This is Digital Drive.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.